Let's talk about the latest of the Elon Musk, Donald Trump breakup drama. And I have to say, when I first reported on them having a falling out, and this was earlier on in the week, I think it was Tuesday, when they were first starting to have this falling out, and Elon left and he was criticizing Donald Trump. Some of you emailed in and even made comments on the show saying, "Oh, Kim's falling for that liberal bullshit. She's saying the same stuff that this was just, Elon just left and it was fine. There's no drama." Well, you're just eating your words now, aren't you? Because there's loads of drama. And the writing was on the wall. It was very clear when Elon Musk and Donald Trump parted ways on Tuesday that it was not exactly amicable. The way that they were saying things, the words, the phrases, and now it's all blown up and it's all gone to hell. Thomas Massie, which, by the way, Donald Trump hasn't really said anything about Elon Musk. He is pretty much, I'm surprised, but actually Donald Trump is the one who's kind of being the more mature adult in the room during this breakup. Elon Musk is definitely like the scorned woman, hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned sort of a thing. But Donald Trump is sort of being the adult. I mean, the only thing that Donald Trump did that I think is going to bite him is threatening Elon Musk's contracts, threatening to rip the contracts away, basically using the breakup as, look, we now have this personal issue with each other. And so I've got the power and I'm going to take away, I'm going to take all of your money away. I think that's where Donald Trump is kind of playing dirty. But surprisingly, he's otherwise not saying anything. He hasn't responded at all to the Epstein accusation that Elon Musk threw out there, that Donald Trump was on the Epstein list. Which, how does Elon Musk know that? And if Elon Musk knows that, why hasn't he told the American people or somehow leaked it out on X, through a new round of X files that give us the real Epstein files? I mean, that's what we want. That's the type of thing we want from Elon Musk. We want the truth. And instead, what did we get? Especially when it came to the Epstein files, we got a bunch of social media influencers. Some of them, all of them Zionists, some of them even Israelis, getting access to the so-called Epstein files, waving it around in a social media sort of parade post, and we got nothing. And then Elon says, well, that's because Donald Trump's in those files. Well, how do you know? And if you knew this all along, why are you covering for him? Why not put it out there on X? Why not get those files and leak them? That's what you should be doing, Elon Musk. If you really want to get at him, that's what you should be doing. But basically, Donald Trump said today that he's not even thinking about Elon and he probably won't speak to him and he wishes him the best. Elon, on the other hand, has said some other things. This is, here's Elon saying, it's time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80%, or is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle? And 80% so far have said yes. 19.5% have said no. Americans want a new political party. And Elon Musk, very interesting, that he's putting that out there, because he is the type that definitely would start a political party, I have no doubt, and he's got the money to do it. So will we see another party rise up? That's an interesting question. But you know what? The night is still young. Trump has only been in office for 6 months. We still have 3.5 more years before there's even, really 3 years before there's even any chatter of the election and whether or not people are looking for another party. But they might. I mean, if Republicans fail at delivering what they promised to the American people, which they probably will, to be honest, at this juncture, the way that they're going, it looks like they will fail. And that is because if this budget passes and it really is, if this new budget ends up adding $5 trillion to the deficit, people are going to be upset about that. If we end up at war, or if they're not able to end the wars, and now we've got $1 trillion defense budget. I mean, look, they're just going to feel like, okay, the smoke screen is over. I can see through it, and we want something different. So maybe, but it is still really early, and I feel like he's just kind of throwing this out there like, but what does Donald Trump care? I mean, he's not eligible to run for office again. He's president. This is his last term. He doesn't, I mean, this is it for him. He doesn't care. So he doesn't care. Do you think Donald Trump cares about the Republican Party and whether or not they carry on the torch and continue? No, he doesn't care. He's president. That's all he cares about right now. He's got 3.5 more years, and he's going to do whatever he wants within those 3.5 years, and probably a lot of what his donors want, because that's what it kind of looks like. But I do want to play this for you. Thomas Massie, who must be some sort of prophet, seer, and revelator, back in late March, said this about Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
That's a real untold story here, and I think we may be on a collision course. Like, I think there's three cars coming together at an intersection, and they don't realize they're going to hit. And one of them is Congress, with Mike Johnson driving, is in one of these cars. Trump obviously is one of these cars. Maybe he's the train. And then there's another car, which is Doge. And I don't think Elon Musk is going to suffer these fools once he finds out how foolish they are or duplicitous they are. You don't land rockets backwards. You don't get cars to drive themselves on the interstate by ignoring the fools that you're working with.
Interesting. So he even called it back in late March, saying Elon Musk is not going to suffer these fools. When he figures out that they're fools, he's not going to suffer them. He's not going to sit there and just take it. And he certainly has not. He is left left like a rocket ship out into space. I mean, Elon that was it. He was just like, you guys are not really actually cutting the budget. You're not actually doing what we said we were going to do with Doge and all these cuts. And now you guys are just adding to things. And so Elon is out of there and he is taking no prisoners while he's doing it. But Thomas Massie called it from the very beginning. He sat there and said, he's not going to suffer these fools. So here we are today. Once again, another reason to listen to Thomas Massie, right? The guy knows what he's talking about. The guy knows what he's doing. All right. I want to play a couple of other clips for you before we move on to our interview with Dr. Stella Emanuel. But here is, this is brilliant. This is Warren Buffett, and he had a plan for how to keep the budget balanced. And his plan here, what he would like to do, what we should implement, I think should apply to many other areas and not just the budget. This is his plan.
I can end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there's a deficit of more than 3% of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. Yeah. Now you've got the incentives in the right place.
Yeah. You know how many things we could do if we said, all right, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're no longer, the entire Congress gets wiped out. None of you are eligible for re-election. You all get replaced. I think absolutely the deficit is one of them. That's one thing that absolutely just get rid of. If they can't get their job done, they should all be fired. And it should be a mandatory firing. Sorry, but you all lose your jobs. Same thing with war. If another bomb is dropped by U.S. military and you didn't do your job and hold the executive branch and the Department of Defense accountable. If you didn't do your job and demand that you are the branch that declares war, then you should all lose your jobs. There should be just certain aspects that Congress, certain categories, I should say, where Congress loses their jobs as a whole, collectively. None of them are saved if they do not uphold certain promises and certain responsibilities that they have to the American people. I think the budget is one of them. That is their job. Congress has the power of the purse. That is literally their job. That and declaration of war. And those two things, they have dropped the ball entirely. The deficit has run wild. We're at endless war. And when was the last time we declared war? Like 1941. That was literally the last time we declared war. We haven't declared war since then, and yet we've been in perpetual war because Congress has kicked the can down the road. They figured out workarounds. They don't want to have to vote on tough topics. They don't want to actually have to do their job. They just want to get reelected every 2 years and sit there and collect millions of dollars in book sales and speech sales and getting their next job when they're out of Congress, right? They're doing all of these things to enrich themselves, to empower themselves. They leave us all behind, and they should all lose their damn jobs. And that includes the good ones. They should all have to go. Because I guarantee you, if that were the strategy, they would say, well, look, we got to get together and we actually have to do something. And they would no longer make the stupid excuses of, we got to go to break. We got to, we're going to put this on hold because we're going off to break. We're going off to vacation. And then when we come back, we'll take this up again. Or let's just kick down the can down the road and let's just pass a stopgap bill, so that we don't have to actually pass an actual budget, but we'll just pass a stopgap budget, to plug the hole for a minute. And then we'll come back to this. We'll revisit this after our vacation. That stuff needs to end. The question is, look, it's a brilliant idea. We should have a law that says you're all going to lose your jobs if you don't do your jobs. But unfortunately, who's going to make that law? we need them to make that law. And they're not going to make that law. So unless we have a constitutional amendment, which, would that work as a constitutional amendment where the people actually get to ratify? We'd have to somehow get together as the people and make amendments and put that in there. And I also think that any sort of war, any president that drops any bombs on any country at all automatically is also ineligible for re-election. And if we do that, then they would be very cautious about who they drop bombs on. It would have to be really, 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 truly necessary, and the president is doing it because they genuinely believe it's in the benefit of the country, and they're willing to no longer be president again, or the people around them would have to all resign, like the entire administration would have to resign. So it's not just the president, because then you could say, well, but like Donald Trump's in his second term, so what would it matter, right? Like he'll just drop bombs on everybody because if he's not eligible for re-election anyway. But it's got to be everybody in those departments, like the entire heads of, basically the entire administration can no longer hold a job in Washington. So it'd have to be a very well thought out, calculated plan where look, I'm going to do this. It's going to cost us all of our jobs, but we have no choice. We have to drop this bomb because this is for the benefit of the country. We must. Now, it's one thing, we could write it in there somehow. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but it's one thing if we say it would have to be a preemptive strike. It wouldn't. Retaliation is different. If some country wages war on us and we retaliate, I don't think that would qualify. But then again, the whole invasion of Iraq, and then you look at that, and then it's like, well, that was in response to 9/11. So does that? But no, 9/11 wasn't enacted on us by a country. It wasn't enacted on us by Iraq. So maybe there would be ways to ensure that, there couldn't be this Bush workaround where he says, yeah, but 9/11 happened, and so we had to go in there and invade Iraq or whatever. It's gotta be airtight to where they're not able to drop bombs on another country, especially a country that did not bomb us first. They're not allowed, and it's not just like rogue terrorist actors. It'd have to be that country bombed us. That country attacked us. The country, the government, their military, they're the ones who actually attacked us. It was an act of actual war. And then we could say, now you could drop bombs and not lose your job. But if you do any of these preemptive strike type things, then you lose your job. So that means you're going to have to really, really, really think about it. And you'd only do it if you absolutely felt it was so completely, utterly necessary that it was in the benefit of the country and you're willing to sacrifice your job, and all the administration's willing to sacrifice their jobs in order to, because it's for the benefit of the country. That's the only way we can hold them accountable, I think, is with these types of provisions of you will just lose your job. So you better really think about it. And if you really think it's for the benefit of the country, you got to be willing to lose your job over it. And then in which case we'll trust you. We'll believe you because you walked away from your job. But they've run amok. They're all corrupt. We have a completely ineffective, corrupt government, and we are headed for absolute demise. And really, the way that the United States is going to demise is not through, it's not going to be like, I say this, but knock on wood, because I'm usually wrong when it comes to the negative stuff, guys. I just naturally am more of a positive thinker. So when it comes to negative predictions, I'm often wrong on this, and things end up worse than like COVID. I didn't think, they'll never do mandates. We're America. Oh boy, was I wrong. Okay, so let's hope I'm actually wrong, because I don't think that we're going to see like a collapsing of the country because of something catastrophic happens and the country collapses and we end up all standing in bread lines. I don't see that happening. I see it more of we just get replaced. We get replaced by China. And China, having the most influence and power in the world at that point, starts to influence all of the other countries around us. And we slowly find ourselves isolated, and we slowly find ourselves poorer and poorer because other countries don't want to do business with us, because China's kind of looked at them and said, you do business with the United States, you're going to have a problem with us, and we're now the most powerful country in the world, and you don't want to have a problem with us, you want to remain friends with us, and the United States is hostile. And so this is why we're kind of, we want to keep hostile actors who have negative intentions out of our circle of influence. And so it would be more of this slow decline, slow demise of the empire, much like the Roman Empire, just slowly sort of whittled away. I think that's what's going to happen to the United States. And it's totally and completely preventable if our leadership in Washington wasn't so self-serving and corrupt. They'd be able to do what was in the best interest of the United States. And it's not about remaining the most powerful. I mean, you look at the Nordic countries, and they're not the most powerful countries on earth. The Vikings gave up being Vikings, right? They're no longer out there conquering and pillaging. They're just the Nordic people, the Scandinavian people are just living in very wealthy countries. They're very happy. They're living very well. They have very low corruption in their governments, and they don't need to rule the world in order to do that. And that's the direction we could have gone in, but we've got a bunch of greedy, self-serving, just corrupt people in our government, and that's why we're headed for demise. But let's just hope it's not breadline level demise. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Let's hope I'm not, though, because that would be awful. Speaking of demise, I want to play this last clip for you here. This is Donald Trump talking. He had the Chancellor of Germany, Merz, came to the White House. Nobody paid attention to it because everyone's paying attention to the drama between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. But the Chancellor of Germany showed up. And while the Chancellor of Germany, now remember, Germany was the recipient of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So that pipeline was to deliver gas, natural gas, from Russia to Europe. And it got blown up. Many of us suspect the United States had a lot to do with it being blown up. But here's Donald Trump bragging right to Germany's face, right to the German Chancellor's face, that he was the one who put a stop to the Nord Stream pipeline. And he looks at the Germany, it was us. We put the stop to it. Now, he doesn't mean blow it up, but we'll get to that. Watch this.
On Russia, are you willing to put more pressure on Putin to end the war by imposing new sanctions on Russia and also on China?
Well, remember, I'm the one that ended Nord Stream 2, going to a place called Germany, come to think of it. I'm sorry I did that. I don't know. But I ended Nord Stream 2. Nobody else did. And then when Biden came in, he immediately approved it. That's essentially the largest pipeline in the world, going to Germany and other countries. And by the way, we have so much oil and gas, you will not be able to buy it all. I mean, you literally, we have so much, and I hope we're going to make that a part of our trade deal because we have more than anybody else. We have actually the most by far in the world, probably double what anyone else has. So we'll work on that. I'm sure that's.
Oh, right, because it would be so economical, right, for the Europeans to buy natural gas from the United States an Atlantic Ocean away. That would be so economical. Doesn't that make so much sense? To somehow pipe in natural gas all the way in from across the Atlantic Ocean rather than just go to Russia right there, also in Europe. Right, this just makes so much sense. So Donald Trump there is bragging that he put an end to Nord Stream 2. And what he means is a halting of turning it on. So not blowing it up, but he just means they didn't turn it on. They put a stop to it. Biden, and then he claims, and this is where it gets weird, because then he claims, well, Biden then comes into office and he approved the Nord Stream 2. Okay, so Biden does that only to later blow it up. I mean, many of us suspect that the United States had a hand in blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, or at least had approved the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline. So did Joe Biden, was he really truly pro this Nord Stream pipeline if he then goes around and blows it up? Unless you're one of those people who believes that Russia blew up their own Nord Stream gas pipeline. But this is the problem. I mean, Europe. At some point, this is the problem with the United States right now, bragging to the face of the German chancellor and saying, look, we were the ones who put a stop to this. And of course, he meant turned it off, but we all know Joe Biden blew the thing up. So allegedly, but likely, right, had a hand in it, however you want to phrase it. So he's bragging about this to the Europeans. The Europeans are right now in a very fragile spot in their relationship with the United States. They're sitting there questioning, should we remain friends with the United States when the U.S. drags us, ropes us into these proxy conflicts with Russia, for example, getting us to go all in on Ukraine? Then they're going to back out, leaving us to have to now go all in on Ukraine on our own. Roping us into all of these different conflicts, roping us into all this these like globalist wokeism agendas and then leaves us with tariffs and also telling us that we're not allowed to be independent, getting our own gas from Russia. Instead, they're going to harm that endeavor and we need to buy gas from them. I mean, at some point, Europe is going to have enough. I mean, right now, Europe is still kind of going along, but when the rest of the world is now having enough, at some point, Europe is also going to have enough. And they're going to say, that's it. The United States is no longer our friend. And we have just alienated and isolated ourselves. And we're going to go the way of Israel. You know, Israel has lost the faith of the entire world in that country. People look at Israel as a pariah nation now. And I mean, ideally, the United States doesn't ever commit a genocide. But the U.S. is slowly being viewed as a pariah nation in its own right because of things like this, of sitting there bragging, saying, yeah, we cut you off from your cheap natural gas. That was us. We did it. Oh, my goodness. The gall of our government and our political, or just not even the gall. I mean, they're just the sheer stupidity, quite frankly. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We do live stream it every day. It's a 1-hour show. You can catch it. It is totally free. Just go to KimIversonShow.com. See you there.